right, I'm going to assume that we're back on. Yep. Okay, looks like we're probably back on now. So, for anyone that was looking at my last video, we were kind of looking at images through the standard setup for my telescope, which is the camera at the back. Now we've monster trucked this sucker to put the camera in the front in what's known as the Hyperstar configuration. I slewed over, got focus. Looks like my stars are actually looking a whole hell of a lot better than they ever have through this setup before. And I haven't really started stacking anything yet because I think this might be kind of surprising how well things turn out. So I slewed it over to, or pointed this guy over to the Triffid Nebula. Now, when Hyperstar comes out, when you set up for Hyperstar, things are in a wider field of view, so you're not magnified as much, but you tend to get a whole lot more image data in for the amount of time you take the photo, because the f ratio of the scope goes from f10 to an amazing f2. I say amazing, but I've never really successfully gotten great pictures out of it because my old camera really wasn't the right one for the scope. So we're going to try this now. I've got it at a 10-second exposure right now. I'm not going to record these yet, but I am going to turn on, I do want to do a couple things here. So let's turn on our cooling, remove as much noise from the camera as we can. We're going to take this as far as we can go. We're going to go to 20 here. Give it a second for that camera to cool down. And actually, let me even push this a little more. So instead of, let's see what a 20-second image would look like. Let's just take one here. It's entirely possible that may blow out entirely with this f ratio, but we'll see what a 20-second image on this guy looks like. Drum roll. And boom. One thing I want to kind of do here just to show you guys, I'm going to go ahead and put this back on auto range, and let's go ahead and do it as full range minus. Let's go ahead and take it to low. Here you go. Already you can see nebula starting to come out, right? And I'm not even starting to stack yet. There's also nebula up here in the corner. So that's a 20-second image. Haven't done anything to it yet. That's kind of insane. So let's see what we can end up with. So I'm going to set it down to full range here. We're going to put it at 20 seconds, and our cooling is getting nice and low there. And what we want to start doing is we'll go ahead and pick a new directory here. And let's call this it's not fireworks, Triffid. Trig. Hard to type in the dark, folks. Triffid Nebula HS for Hyperstar. Okay. Let's go ahead and do that. And take those. We'll put this into what's called video mode. That's what then allows us to stack. Now everything looks like crap all of a sudden, but that's because I just need to turn it down there. Let's stop that for now. I want to reset our stack. Got our directory ready to go. All right. One thing I think I would like to do, let's just try it as it is for a minute here. So I'm going to stack the image and record and go. Let's see what we get. And first real image comes in. And it doesn't look like much because we're still on full range. So why don't we go to low here. All right, so we've got that, and let's start just seeing what happens as this comes in. It starts stacking. Now, what I might want to do, I'm going to give it I'm going to let it get 3 or 4 up here before I start adjusting the levels again. But you can probably already tell you can tell the dust nebulosity in here already. That's pretty crazy for how quick we're doing these photos. All right, so let's go ahead. Let's wait for the next one to come through. All right, now let's try doing this as the mean standard deviation. Let's look at max peak. Ooh, max peak is not a good setting for Hyperstar. Alright, let's leave it on this for a while and let's see what it looks like as more images start coming in. Now, what's entirely possible here, and it's something that we'll look at as it keeps going, is once again, as I mentioned before, I've got a pretty fair amount of light pollution, and this is actually a lot lower in the sky than what we were looking at on the other one. So, as far as I can tell, I'm shooting at a big block of gray if I was looking up in the sky right now where the telescope's pointing. So, oh man, I'm just looking at those stars. Just little dots all the way around. Oh, that's pretty. So it's entirely possible at this level of exposure I may be blowing it out a little bit. So we'll give it a few images here and kind of see if stretching it around helps out or not. If it doesn't, then I'll reduce the exposure time, which in some ways is great because you can just take more and more sharper and sharper pictures, and we'll see if we can get something better with that. Still already, let me see if I can zoom in here. Yeah, there we go. Look at that. Look at that. Just right off the bat. Now, this is not, I should say, this is not all that I'm looking for in the Triffid. If you kind of Google up Triffid, it's actually kind of got a couple of different pieces to it of different colors and things like that. I'm hoping that that kind of starts coming out a little bit more, and that kind of thing. Let's just keep watching it here a little bit. All right, so we're about 10 stacked images in. Try adjusting our black levels up a bit. By a bit, I mean a whole hell of a lot. Let's try to bring this really in. Start looking at that. Went a little too far there, but you can kind of see what you'd be doing with post-processing here. Oop, I think I messed a color channel up. Let's go back to auto adjust. Either that or maybe the stack did that. Let's see what happens when the next one comes in. Let's take it back off of this down to full range. Play with it this way. Start bringing that black up. Bring the white way, way down. See that glow from the nebula coming in. There we go. Let's play with a few of these. Ever seen that point in Spaceballs where they've gone to plaid? Kind of feel like I might have done that. Things are starting to feel a little purpley everywhere. Oh, wow. Okay, max peak starts working well once you get to 16 or so images. Goodness, that's really starting to look nice there. But you can tell, mentioned earlier on, this idea of vignetting. When we were looking at this earlier, you could kind of see a lot of nebulosity up here. This is trying to stretch it to bring out as much detail here as it can. And so you can see that you kind of get this lighter area in here. What I'm going to do when I'm done with this, and I won't make you guys sit around and watch it because no one would, is I'll take some flat images that I was mentioning in my last video, where I'm really looking at, how the I'll just put a white light panel over the scope, and take some images of what the overall optical train looks like for that. Now, here's what we're getting at with the Triffid. It's probably hard for you to notice yet, but if you start to see, there's another set of nebula here. And the difference is, this is what makes the Triffid so pretty to look at. This is red. This is actually a bluish color. So the more we're able to stack here, hopefully the more detail we'll be able to see in that as it comes out. But boy, I'm just really pretty happy with these stars here. I'm definitely getting a little bit of kind of coma or bloat around some of them here. That's probably my collimation being a little bit out, but still, once you're zoomed all the way out in the picture, not bad. Not bad for the very first night of trying this one out. So we'll go ahead and let this keep running for a while here. Since we're really kind of focused in this area, why don't we just zoom it in so that it looks a little bit prettier for that without my stars looking too bad. Now, I've still told it to, as I was saying in the earlier one, reject when my stars get out of a 10, which is, when they would start getting really bad. In this case, it's just none of them are being rejected. It's just going for it straight out. Looks like against ambient temperature, minus 15 is about as good as we can do. So I think I'll back this up to kind of have it set at that. But wow, being able to pull out this amount of nebulosity, 20-second exposure on the low gain setting, that's pretty cool. I wonder if I'm actually just blowing it out. So once we get to about 40 images, because this is going so quick through here, I'll go ahead and switch this up. Well, maybe we'll do it at 30. Yeah, let's do it at 30. Let's not get too greedy. It's nice you can see different star colors in here. Once this gets a little bit more color corrected, should really be able to tell the difference between the blues, the orange, the reds, those kinds. Let's get this last photo in. All right, so go ahead and stop taking this for now. Turn off that recording. Let's make another one for Triffid. And instead this time let's go for 10-second exposures. And let's see what a different, if that makes any difference, good or bad. Second exposure. Let's go ahead and reset our stack. And everything looking good. Put that back down to full range. Record. And let's go. Let's see what the 10-second comes out looking like. Goodness, our histogram is still way over here. It's not way back there. So that means we're getting a lot of data in a very short amount of time. So we're going to let that go. Put it over to max peak, which will probably look pretty crazy. Yeah. There we go. Oh, wow. Yeah, we can see it already there. And we've only got a couple images in, so let's let it keep going here. Once it gets to about 15, I'll switch it over to the other, to that max one, because I think that's really when that one starts to shine. Let's look here, see if everything else is just kind of blown out. Looks like it probably is. Those not too bad. Full range, unfortunately, is just a little too high, but you can pull some of it out there. All right, 10, 11 exposures. So let's go ahead and switch this over to max peak. And I think I'm going to give this a shot. It's going to look like a white screen for a few seconds here, but I think once we hit about 15, this thing will start to readjust on us here. Could be wrong. If you notice down here, the lines at the bottom are really kind of going crazy trying to figure out what to do. I'm just curious to see what that algorithm does. It seems to be having some trouble, so let's put it out of its misery and drag it down a bit. That will bring this black level in. There we go. Bring that down a bit. Too much. There we go. And still, you can start to see some of the nebulosity in there too. We're just going to let this run for a while. And hopefully, as this keeps going, we're going to find that this starts getting a little bit brighter, a little bit brighter, a little bit easier to kind of stretch out and take a good look at without getting overwhelmed by noise and other artifacts. Once again, I'm going to zoom back out. If I kind of pull my black level over this way, you can see that there's some nebulosity up there as well. Let's see if I drag this in, if we'll be able to see that any better. Yeah, only a little bit. I have to look at my planetarium map to know which nebula is over that way. There's a lot in that part of the sky. And especially once you kind of turn this into having such a big field of view, it becomes one of those things where you can get a lot of things in one frame. Now let's try to move this back into an auto and see. Boy, that max peak just sure doesn't like it yet. Mean SD's pretty good. Let's go back down to, and we get into our darks once we do that. Bring that black in. So as you can see, for anyone who's still paying attention, the astrophotography hobby tends to be one of patience. But it is one of those hobbies where that patience can be rewarded if you really stick with it for a while. So far for this camera, I'm pretty happy with the first night results. I definitely feel like I've got some work to do, looking at some of these. Like, I have some stars that are pretty round overall, but when I see this kind of thing here, that makes me think, okay, either I'm out of collimation, which is kind of having everything in a nice straight line, all lined up, nothing's tilted or flat, um, or something else is going on. Hyperstar is very touchy in that way, um, but can't argue with being able to get some pretty interesting data to work with and play around with at such low exposure times. Kind of can't beat that. All right, so to save everybody's sanity, I'm going to try and believe on this broadcast I can actually pause it. So for me, real time will keep going on, and you guys will just see this as a cut to another part. So I'm going to go ahead and pause it and let this build up for some more time here, and then we can come back and hopefully you'll see. All right. So I think we're back online now. Oh, Show chat messages. Did I have any chat messages? Doesn't look like it. But neat to know that that's there. Okay, so now we're about 94 in. I'm starting to see some that aren't getting stacked, which probably means we're about maxing out where we are. And I think from looking at the 30-second one that I was doing, I was definitely seeing more down here. So I think the key on this is, or the 20-second, is that the 10-second isn't quite getting enough. So we're going to go ahead and stop this one now. It's a real nice set of images, though. Should be a lot to play around with. And what I actually wanted to do is, for when we were, let me readjust this back out. For when we were looking at this earlier, maybe kind of, it's hard to see in here, there was some nebulosity up there. That's actually the Lagoon Nebula I was looking up, and that one is actually brighter than this one. So I was going to go ahead and move over to the Lagoon Nebula, and then we'll see if we can see anything from that. Set up for another image. See what we can get. So let's start off with like a 25. I'm gonna try to bin it here just to see what we get. Well, that's probably asking too much. Let's just go ahead and take an image and see what we see. Let's reset our stack. Let's see what we get out of this first one here. Oh, that's bright. Let's play with our levels. Ooh. Ooh. Hello. Hello, Nebula. I see you on our first image. I like that. Let's see what happens with a 30-second real quick before we commit to doing more here. Let's see if we get a little bit more data or not. The only problem with this is you see our histogram is really starting to move further this way, so it may be too much, but let's see. Definitely brighter. More black level. Really shrink this in. There's definitely some good data in there. You know what? Why don't we let me try this at the 25. I'm a little scared of the 30, to be honest with you. But let's go ahead and stop that. Make a new directory here. You can tell I have not started to really get great about taking my log stuff, but you know, it's the first night. Once we get into the groove here, start doing a little bit more paying attention on some of the details. All right, so 25 seconds. Let's put this on the auto range. And goodness, you can even start to see some of it just even in the full range there. All right, well, let's do it. Let's record and start taking our pictures. Now I have a feeling, oh, I need to make sure I'm stacking these. There we go. And let's reset our stack. All right. As you might have been able to tell, all the stars shifted slightly with that first image. And that's basically what happens pretty much every time, because my mount won't, stay on and turn with the stars, right? It'll stay looking at them, but it won't actually turn with them. And so that's really the drawback of what's called an alt azimuth mount, which one just goes left, right, up, and down. So what this stacking does is it's taking the stars in there and essentially kind of like two pieces of semi-transparent paper. It just kind of turns them and aligns them up right when it does that stacking each time. And that really allows it, for something like this, when the exposures are pretty short, to really work well, to kind of keep it looking all the same. So let's do a little stretching in here. So definitely got some good detail getting started there. Bring our black in a bit. There we go. Now we can see some contrast in there. Go ahead and let this run now for a bit. See if I can move my midpoint. Ooh, that doesn't do too much to help. Still getting used to how to mess with these controls live. Just a little bit there. There we go. Look, you can see that nice bright center there and some nice kind of outlines on the dust lanes and stuff. This kind of nebula, by the way, for folks that may be wondering, is called an emission nebula. And what that means is it's that where it gets its color is actually the stars around it and inside the nebula are actually blowing off solar winds. And as those winds pass through, as that light from those stars passes through the dust in the nebula, it actually glows. So it actually emits some light. It gets energized by those particles going through. So it's pretty cool to see that kind of stuff. And then you have things that are called reflection nebulas that are really, when you see them, it's closer to things like dust lanes and stuff. Those are things that they just kind of reflect the light that's coming off of them. But emission nebulas can be very bright and very, very pretty to look at. Just letting this go through. We're about 7 images stacked. And man, I'm just already feeling, I like that detail I see in there already. And I think even my stars are looking a little bit better than last time. Still a little bloaty. Just keep letting this run. One of the nice things on watching this on playback is you guys can just feel free to skip to the end and see how well it turns out. Wow, this is really starting to look nice. Just coming in here to see kind of that bright color coming in there with, the heavy contrast to the trails and stuff. I mean, just from essentially skip to a different part of the screen. Um, just looking at, how much kind of early detail, especially when you zoom out, when you're looking at full resolution here, you can see kind of just how sharp all that looks from here. Obviously, when you really, dive into anything, um, you're going to lose resolution. It's going to look grainy when you move in. But being kind of at this full zoom out, boy, stuff just looks pretty. Now, granted, the Lagoon Nebula, if you look up pictures online, spanning way out here, it's a pretty big nebula overall. So I'll be interested to see how much of what's out here I can bring out, because I can kind of tell I've got at least all around here got some good nebulosity. So hopefully that should be able to be teased out, over time here. Not on this screen. I mean more when I'm looking at this back after final processing and things like Photoshop and things like that. I'm just going to let this guy run. We'll see how much detail we can get here. Going to run inside and get something to drink. Feel free to keep watching. Alright, let's see how this is going. Let's see if any of the auto ranges are able to do anything nicely with this. You can start to see these rings coming in here that I believe are why I need to take those flat fields. It's the vignetting on my scope. Let's see what the mean. Well, it blows out the center there. Not too much else. Max Peak doesn't know what to do with itself. Got some star cluster over there, it looks like. That's pretty crazy. So all of these, by the way, are meant to really brighten up the image to pull out when something's super faint. But in our case, it's so bright in and of itself with these pictures that it's pretty easy just to slide the white down and really start seeing a lot of that detail. Now over here, you can see we've got a whole cluster over there, which is pretty cool. All right, well, we're at 31 images now, and that is looking really pretty good for the equivalent of what we would call just almost video astronomy, right? It's just a real slow frame rate, but it is processing all of this live, which is pretty amazing. When I first got into this hobby and tried to do astro imaging about 8 or 9 years ago, this kind of ability to watch this stuff really build up live just wasn't there. So it's amazing to kind of see how far it's come in such a short period of time. And for anyone still watching, which is probably optimistic, but anyone that's still watching that may be interested about the telescopes themselves, my telescope literally has a little hand controller. I punch in what I want it to do, and it just goes right there. Most of the time, I don't know where any of this junk is in the sky. I really haven't boned up on the classical sky knowledge. I live in, the outskirts of Dallas. Normally I'm lucky if I can see the Big Dipper. I feel pretty smart knowing which dots are the planets. But that's about it. So being able to really have a scope that can kind of open up, the universe and the sky for you is really helpful over what we've had in the past. So definitely an exciting time to be part of all of this. And I think what we're going to do once I get the last of this done, which I'll probably let it run until about 40 images, because boy, we're getting good detail down in the center here. I don't know it's going to get much better. I'm going to run this back to the first target I was looking at tonight when I had the camera on the back of the scope, which was the Veil Nebula. I was really impressed with just how much I was able to get just off of that. But that was on the slow side of the scope. I'm interested to see, with the wider field of view and, being able to take shorter exposures if I can't round the night out on something good there. Plus, that is near the zenith, which is straight up. So that should be much better view in terms of light pollution and everything else than kind of looking over to the side here. But I've only got probably about half an hour left before the moon starts coming up and spoils everybody's fun. Let's see, so we're at 38. You can see next to it on the stack info here, this is what it calls the total seconds. So the way it looks at this is, these exposures, you can kind of almost equate it to if you were taking an hour-long exposure, but you broke it into 1 minute chunks of 60 seconds. You're still acquiring that signal, and you can kind of keep adding it and adding it and adding it while you remove and under a denominator of a math equation the noise. And that's why you can really start getting, just by stacking these things together, a lot more detail over time. And we're at 40, so I'll let it take this last one at 41. And bink, we're at 41. So we'll go ahead and stop this one. Stop recording on Lagoon for right now. And we'll go ahead and move the scope up to the Veil Nebula. Now moved over there, and we can start doing some new images. So let's go ahead and just take that first single image for where we are here. We'll do the same exposure as last time and reset everything here. All right, so once again, it's pretty nothing at the beginning. Start opening it up. Let's see. Looks like we've definitely got some star trails up here at 25 seconds, so might need to tweak that down a little bit. But boy, not seeing much there. Yeah, really not seeing much there. Here's what I'm going to do. I'm going to pop this down to 20. Actually, you know what? I think this might be just the world telling me it's time to go to bed. So, with that, I think, we've only got a little bit of time before the moon comes up. Here's what I'm going to do. I'm going to take one last 15-second, just a nice picture here. Put this down to full range. So anyone who did decide to watch this, you're a brave soul. I appreciate you for hanging out as long as you have. It's always neat to be able to play with some of these toys and really see how far you can kind of pull something out of nothing almost. But we can kind of end this with just a nice star field here. And I have a feeling buried somewhere deep in here is a little bit of a nebula. But it's probably not in the cards for us to find it tonight. So thank you for hanging out here. I hope this has given you some interest or some idea of some of the neat stuff that can be done out